These are fennel seeds. I've had them for about 2 years. I've had them in a container. You'll notice that after 2 years, these same fennel seeds haven't produced any fruit. In fact, they haven't even grown beyond being a seed. They are still the same seeds as they were when they died. A seed is basically dead. In order for it to become alive, it sort of has to go through what you could call a resurrection. And it can't go through that resurrection by doing it to itself. This seed cannot produce anything of itself. The same thing is true of evolution. Evolution claims that a thing of itself can produce something beyond itself. Christians are making the same claim as the evolutionists when they say that they can produce fruit, because this can't grow on its own. It has to have something else outside it, just like evolution does. Even if evolution were true, something outside the universe has to make it happen. Something outside you, believer seed, has to make you grow. Something has to plant you. Something has to water you. Something has to tend to you. Something outside you makes you stop being a dead seed in a container for 2 years or X years. Okay? That's where we're starting this video. Okay, those same fennel seeds are now in here. I add them to my coffee. And they're just as dead inside the coffee, but they still nourish me. So a dead thing, as we saw in the second video on spiritual retards, is caused to nourish anyway. And why do I stress that? For 2 reasons. Well, if you're new, if you're a baby, you're weak. And those of us who are strong are only strong because God made us that way. We're no longer fennel, whether in coffee or not. God grew us. God applied the soil. God planted us. God applied the soil. That's the Luke 8 parable. God applied the soil. God applied the water. God did all the work. Only God can make it rain. Only God can make the soil nourish you. Okay, man does stuff to add to the soil, but the soil's really God's, and He made all the components. A tree doesn't really produce its own fruit. It has to be husbanded. Husbanded. That's Paul's big point in Ephesians 4. He likens a pastor to a husbandman in Ephesians 4:16. You have to be, you're a seed, okay, like we saw in the beginning. You're a seed. Somebody else has to do something to you for you to produce fruit. A lamb does not produce its own wool. It's coming out of the lamb. The fruit is coming out of the tree. But the one that's making the production is not the tree. The tree receives it. The lamb receives it. So if you want to produce fruit, and if you want to say thank you to God, which you do, then how does that happen? Well, what does James say in James 1? Receive the implanted word. The problem of the people he was writing to is they weren't receiving the word, they were receiving their works, okay? The word, not somebody else's word. Alright, so James uses the, or he omits it, to show whether man's works or God's works. Receive the implanted word so that you won't stay a sterile seed. Okay, so how do you receive it? Well, the Bible tells you. Alright? You use 1 John 1:9, or else you're not filled with the Spirit. Okay? You're filled with yourself instead. See my basic Bible videos on 1 John 1:9. It's in my basic Bible playlist. And then you receive the word from where? From a pastor. Male pastor only. Anybody who says female pastorate is valid, just run away from them. Okay? They're so far gone, they'll never grow up. And you won't grow up if you're under them. Alright? No female pastors. Male only. Find him. Talk to God. Well, what pastor should you be under? Okay? It doesn't really matter what denomination it is. It matters who the pastor is, because God has basically kitted out your soul to fit some pastors. And maybe it's not the same pastor your whole life, but it's going to be somebody right now. Find out from God who that is. Ask God to show you. That's the second step. First step, okay, is use 1 John 1:9 or forget it. Alright? You're worse than an axe murderer if you don't use 1 John 1:9. John actually makes that point in 1 John 3:18. Very scathing. The Bible is very insulting to believers more than anybody else. That's why I try to be so insulting in parts 4 and 5. Okay, so 1 John 1:9, use it like breathing. I use it all the time, even if I'm not sure I sinned. It takes a nanosecond. Oh God, I think I was arrogant. Dad, I was arrogant. I'm constantly saying that, especially when I'm working on Windows. Okay. Second step, find out who your pastor is. It might not be the same pastor forever, but it might. You never know. The thing is that he's going to match you up to somebody who you'll understand when you hear that person. Okay? So find out who that is. That's step 2. Step 3. Learn and live on Bible. Now, a lot of churches are spiritually retarded. Most of them. In fact, 99.9% of them. That's the norm, to be spiritually retarded. Okay, but even as a spiritual retard sitting under another spiritual retard, you'll learn something. So maybe you're spiritually retarded and you can't hear, but this other guy who is also spiritually retarded, and you probably won't know that. Okay, but you're hearing somebody. And God will grow you out of it. He'll alert you to it. If you're using 1 John 1:9, He'll grow you. Just keep using it and sit under whomever you're comfortable with. God will alert you and grow you. Okay, and you can outgrow a pastor. And then you go to the next one. Because, again, God wants all the low as well as all the high. So He'll take anybody, wherever you are. And He appoints pastors wherever they are. He gives them the gift of pastor-teacher. But most pastors don't use their gift, except to stay retarded. Okay, fine. He can still use retards. He can still use a sterile seed. Because I just put this seed in this coffee. Okay? I just put the seed in here. It's nourishing me. It's still dead. So everybody has a place at His table. No matter how retarded. Even the people who are going to hell are used to create value. So even the sterile seed is made to nourish. You know, we don't know all the details, but, you know, we know enough down here. I mean, look at what the Exodus did. It was made to nourish the Israelites. Okay, so all those people who suffered and all those cattle who died didn't die in vain. It was used to birth a nation. Our soldiers go and die in battle. That's used to preserve our freedom. Even if the battle that they're in is a stupid battle, it's still used to preserve their freedom. Hamburger Hill was pretty stupid when you look back on it. Look at all those people who died. Yeah, and how many of us are nourished now to go on because we're inspired by their courage? So did they really die in vain? Did the Exodus Egyptians, you know, the firstborn, did they die in vain? No, we're still learning from them. So you see, God takes into account every low thing. So, okay, if you watch this and you're saying, oh, I'm spiritually retarded, welcome to the human race. Okay, fine, so what? You can get out of it. Use 1 John 1:9 like breathing. That's your fast track out. Get under a pastor, whomever you'll listen to. Doesn't matter if he's wrong. Just get under him. Alright? Learn and live on Bible. That's number 3. Okay? Number 4, talk to God all the time. In your head. If you do it out on the street, they're going to lock you up. Do it in your head. I mean, I talk to God about absolutely everything. What should I eat about dinner? How do I respond to an email? In fact, I'm not talking to him as much as I should.